Okay, hi Kagatai. And by the way, is Kagatai, is this the right pronunciation or not?
It's not. It's Chatai.
Chatai.
Yeah,
Okay, hi
that's.
Chatai. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. I'm used to it.
So all my clients know you as Kagatai right now, which is completely wrong, but I hope they will still be able to ping you.
Yeah.
So we always met at Java 1 at the day before Java 1 at the NetBeans Day.
Yeah.
So there was like James Gosling and all the others, and
Yeah.
we had always a brief chat about Java. So I wanted to know actually how you started with Java. When was it? Which version was it? What was your road to Java SE?
Yeah, I think like usual from my generation, like I started in school at the university back in like almost 20 years ago, and I started. It was CS 101, so I started programming by learning Java. So it was just nothing enterprise, just a language, and so it has been close to 20 years since I'm doing Java development. Yeah, so I would say back in school.
And which version of Java was it? You know it?
Well, I don't remember.
Before 1.2.
Probably 1.2, something like 1.2.
Okay,
Maybe.
cool. And you
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah. I mean, when trying to learn programming, yeah, Java, because at the later stages of the university, we started with C++ and C and things like that, which is like, the syntax is different. There's the pointers, the you need to handle the memory yourself and things like that. But to begin with Java, it was I think it's the best choice at back in time. So I'm glad I started with Java, so that it was not very scary. It was just once, but it took me a while to understand the whole object thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some problems back at the day, but yeah, once you get the idea, then it's just smooth.
The same on my side. So it took me a long time to understand actually interfaces. So I had no idea why they are there, because in C++ we had headers,
Yeah.
and with the includes, and it was a little bit more strict. And I was like, what the hell are interfaces? Okay, what happens after university?
Yeah. About that, the most complex thing for me with Java was return statement. I did not understand where does it return to. So it took me a while, a couple of days. So the return, that was the most complex part. And then I just graduated, and I took a job in my city. I live in Turkey, by the way. So it was it's a government project where I had faced with Java, Enterprise, Spring, back in the day, Hibernate for the database stuff, and JSF 1.0 back then. So with JSPs. So it was 2005. So I started Enterprise.
Was it without any JSF providers, or straight JSF? So no ice faces, no rich faces?
Well, at that time, there was no component library except IBM's. We were using IBM's component library with their tool. I guess it was called Red something, where you can do drag and drops, things like that. So that was a time where there were no PrimeFaces, ice faces, rich faces. Just, I think Oracle had some components. I'm not sure, but they were.
But Sun had Woodstock. You remember Woodstock?
Yeah, that was the NetBeans. It was built in, right? Yeah. But we were not using it. We were using IBM's, but there were also MyFaces stuff like Tomahawk and things like that. And
exactly.
Yeah, since I got involved with JSF, so I was not really happy with the IBM components. And at the project, we were writing a lot of components for ourselves. So then I was really interested in Apache MyFaces. They had a lot of components, and I started, sending, we were not calling them pull requests back then, but something like patches. Yeah, patches. We were sending patches. I got involved with MyFaces, and I was coming up with my own components like charts for JSF, some things for JSF. then I got into MyFaces. They invited me to as a committer, and it all began back in the day.
When was it? Was it
2016? Yeah, they invited me to MyFaces, and it was really a huge thing for me. I mean, I was really excited, as a new graduate. So that's the first thing I put on my CV, like Apache committer, and I got a lot of Apache gear for my room, my home, Apache. Yeah. So yeah, then along with Apache MyFaces, I was working with my own side projects as well, all JSF. I was just doing JSF back in 2006 and 2007.
Mm-hmm. And what was your side project?
Yeah, like a couple of chart projects. I had created this JSF chart creator project, and it was really popular because JSF did not have a lot of chart components. I created a couple of more, which I cannot really remember right now. Also, I was working with Tomahawk mostly, and Oracle back in the day they have donated their. I don't remember the library, but at Apache we have renamed it to Trinidad.
This was ADF, right?
ADF, the open source version of ADF, I guess. There were many nice components, and we imported as Trinidad. It became Apache Trinidad. Actually, I was a bit confused because MyFaces Tobago as well. There's Tomahawk. I think it was a problem with MyFaces. We had 3 different component sets instead of 1, which is like you have 3 different tables, a lot of trees and things like. Instead of managing and improving one, we had to deal with a couple of different suites. So then I started working with Trinidad. I wrote a book of the Apache MyFaces books. The one section was my responsibility. It was a joint work. I did the Trinidad part of the book, so I got into the Trinidad as well. But then I decided to come up with my own library because I think there were a lot of potential in JSF. I was really excited with what JBoss was doing with Ajax for JSF. Ajax was coming, and we were just doing full page postbacks, but now Ajax was becoming a thing. So there are a lot of exciting stuff going on. So I decided to come up with my own library. It was called YUI. You know that Yahoo has a UI library for JavaScript, Yahoo UI.
Yes.
I took it. I wrapped them as JSF components. I call it UI for JSF. But it was not really picked up by the community. I didn't have much time to work on it. So I just canceled it after working a couple of months. Then I started to rewrite it and renamed it to PrimeFaces. In 2008, I was in London. I moved to London for work, but I had some troubles with the work permit. So I had a lot of time at home. So I was really bored, so I started PrimeFaces.
I think it was a good decision. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I put my whole experience in it, but it really evolved. I mean, in 2008, I have removed Yahoo UI, and it was the time of jQuery. I was in a conference in the United States. I had this talk called a Deep Dive into jQuery. And I said, okay, what is jQuery? It's like a querying service, querying for databases or something. And I was really interested because it was related to the DOM and the web. So, and I was really fascinated because it was too easy to deal with DOM. And I realized that once I was always using third-party components for basic stuff like inputs, autocompletes, tab views. But then with jQuery, it was really easy to come up with my own components. So that really changed the game because there was no limits. When you use a third party, you had a lot of limitations because the code is not written by you. But with jQuery, I was able to write my own stuff. So I can just create a lot of different features and things like that. So that was a game changer with using jQuery in 2009 with PrimeFaces.
Yeah, it actually caught like wildfire. So I remember that everyone asked me about PrimeFaces. What is it? And it was like, it was the right time, I think, to start your own component library.
Yeah, because I mean there was an open window for a year because no one had JSF2 compatible library. When the JSF2 came out, it had some backward compatibility issues, right, with the facelets and things. So ice faces and rich faces were dominating the Java ecosystem for JSF, but they had some problems with updating their library to JSF 2.0. And even when they did, their 2.0 versions were missing a lot of features. But PrimeFaces, when it started, it was developed against JSF 2.0. So that was a huge advantage. And when the JSF 2 came out, for 1 year, PrimeFaces was the only library that works well with it. So it was a bit luck because it's not easy because, Rich Faces was really popular, Ice Faces was. But all of a sudden, PrimeFaces was the only one who provides components to JSF 2.0. And people were really interested in JSF 2 in 2010. I mean, it had facelets built-in Ajax and things like that. So it was a great time.
Are you still building your own components, or you are relying on third-party JavaScript libraries?
Well, depends. For very complex components, like we have this component called Schedule. It uses a third-party library, Full Calendar. It's a standalone project itself, so it's like the Google Calendar when you have month views, weekday views. So it's a giant library. But for that, instead of using our own, we have decided to wrap it. For charts, we use a third-party library. But for most of the stuff, many form components like tables, trees, all of them are implemented by ourselves using regular APIs. The most important components should be native. By native, I mean not using any dependencies.
This is also my opinion. This is why I'm asking. So I don't like any dependencies. So I was really curious how you approach that.
Yeah, I mean, in PrimeFace, actually, you don't know if it depends on anything, right? Because you get the jar file, but in the era of with other projects, PrimeNG or Prime React, people had to add those dependencies to their package JSON. So they see what they depend on. But with PrimeFaces, you don't care, actually. Although you should care because of the page size and things. But your dependencies get exposed in Angular and React. But with PrimeFaces, you can just encapsulate them. But of course, what we do it from PrimeFaces, we come up with our own. In next version, a nice example, the calendar component. Since the first version, we are using the jQuery UI date picker, but with Angular and React versions of Prime, via PrimeAG, Prime React, we are using our own calendar. In our own calendar, we were able to extend it to add multiple date selection, range selection, and things like that. But with PrimeFaces, we cannot do it because that third-party library does not support multiple or range selection. So we are going to rewrite it by ourselves in next PrimeFace version to include. As I mentioned, it's a nice example because once you use third-party libraries, they just limit you.
Yeah, and what I also like from the user perspective in PrimeFaces is, as you said, it's a single jar. So it really, fits my opinion of Java convention of a configuration. So you just add the library and you are ready to go.
Yeah.
And by the way, feedback from startups. So what I do, I coach a lot of startups, and startups really like PrimeFaces. And why? Because they just copy and paste the code and they are ready to go. They don't have the issues in enterprise companies about CI and pixel perfect or whatever. They just do whatever they they have to do and ship it. So they are extremely productive, and a constant question of what is it? It's like, yeah, we call it Java Server Faces. It runs on Java E server. Okay, and this is just great. It's like, yeah, you say great. Other people say JSF is heavyweight, but you are pragmatic. The others are not. So this is really funny to observe how startups react to JSF and how large companies observe to JSF. And in my opinion, projects where the users are able to see the demo or component library up front, there are no issues. But in companies, where one architect decides for the whole company, we should go with that, this is a big mess, because then the users expect something which our library cannot deliver, and this is the beginning of the end. And this is, I think, why JSF had some backlash, because developers tried to fork then, PrimeFaces or whatever faces to implement the lacking functionality which the user expected, because they never saw the component library actually.
Yeah.
So this is the issue with JSF, but it's really funny. All my startups, you can also read the interviews on my blog, are using actually JSF, and the enterprise companies go, the JavaScript route, which is interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I think maybe depends on the company, maybe depends on the culture. Because I see a lot of enterprises who use PrimeFaces still, but some of them are also using the Angulars or things like that as well. Maybe depends on the application as well. I've been, sometimes at conferences I talk to people and they say, we are using PrimeFaces, we don't need anything else. It just does the job for us, and we can just deliver it in a short amount of time. And depends on the application. I don't know. JSF is an interesting technology. It is quite old. Like more than 10 years old, maybe 15 years old, but it still does the job for many different projects.
No, absolutely. So when the enterprises are pragmatic, it does a great job. But if they are dogmatic, this is where the problem starts. There are lots of successful PrimeFaces projects out there. So I'm interested in one thing. You said you worked with Spring and Hibernate, but at the conferences we usually talk a lot about Java E. And for me, Java E with PrimeFaces is actually a great fit, very productive. What's your opinion of Java E, Java 8, and stuff like that?
Yeah. As a front, I see myself lately as a front-end developer, so I don't do a lot of backend these days for the couple of years. The only Spring project I did was in 2005, so it's more than 13 years old. I've done some consulting, but they were mostly Java E instead of Spring. So I was really happy with the changes in Java E 8. I'm not sure about, I'm just monitoring what's happening with the Jakarta E and the future of JSF and the future of libraries. I think, the move to Eclipse Foundation it's the right move, because you remember the time where the future of Java E was, in question. There were the Java Guardians, and the people, the community was not really happy with how Oracle was handling Java E8. I think it was on huge delays, like 2 years or so before it came out. So technically, I would like to see more frequent releases, more frequent updates, instead of waiting for 2 years and 3 years, because technology just changes too fast. I would like to, in the future, Jakarta E, I would like to see more frequent releases. And catching up with the time of the serverless architecture, microservices. I'm really excited about how Jakarta will adapt to the new changes in the current trends.
Yeah, I'm also really curious what happens, because right now there's a lots of discussion, but what's really impressed me is the speed how microprofile evolves. They released 4 releases in 2017, which is incredible, actually.
Yeah.
And this is a subset, of course, of this, not an official release, but it is really. I'm already using this in production, because it comes with some added value. Back to the front end. Are you actually a designer? So most of the themes are created by you, or you are more an architect?
A bit of both, actually. So I did the technical stuff. I work
Hmm.
with my friend Onur Centure. He's
Hmm.
the lead designer. He
Hmm.
designs all the templates and themes, and
Hmm.
sometimes I do changes as well. Sometimes significant changes and things. So I mean, I've been working on the front end for more than 15 years now, since
Hmm.
2000. So I think my designer skills have developed. I don't use a tool like Sketch or Photoshop, but I just change things from the code. So a bit of both, but I see myself, of course, as the developer side. We have a professional
And
designer.
okay, so what about, for instance, let's say typography or fonts? So you are using a scientific approach, or just you have a feeling, okay, this could look great, or are you following some, theories?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actually following, but owner our designer is. So whenever we do design discussions, okay, why this button has this focus state? Because it's not something I've used to. Because we had some teams where we handled the focus state differently. We just added some extra tick borders with
Hmm.
some outlines. But he said to me that there's some scientific experiments, or let's say researchers, saying that the users cannot understand the focus state easily when using traditional focus with shadows and things like that. So the current trend, the current suggestion is to make this approach. So we usually make changes, depends on the scientific part, but sometimes scientific decisions don't look good. So
Yeah.
at that time we had to tweak it sometimes. But yeah, a bit of both. So we are trying to make it from the user's point of view look good, and experience should be good as well. So trying to find the best of both worlds.
And what about colors? So do you using color palettes, or just, you have an idea and say this should looks like this? So I'm really curious about the creative process.
Yeah, I mean, the color palette is something quite hard to find. You need to find the best color.
Hmm.
So that's where we use a couple of tools, like a couple of websites. We choose a color. We those websites provide you the shades of color from darkest, and
Hmm.
lightest. So we had once we provide some color, we get the whole stack. So and we use that palette, and we also usually choose a secondary color, accent color, the color palette that goes with it. So we use a couple of tools, which provide some scientific uh, results, so that the colors look unified and combined. So the colors is the most complex part when designing themes.
Hmm. Exactly. I took a look. So they're actually also the names are great. So do you have a theme called Serenity?
Yeah,
The other one was the spaceship. What is called?
Ultima.
I think so. There was like or there's like a spaceship. It looks like
Manat.
organic.
Okay.
Yeah, like a planet or something like this. And the names are great, and they've. I mean, the whole concept is really appealing to me, at least, probably to developers as well, because this is like they have California theme and stuff like this, with nice, photo, which with the picture emphasizes what the theme is about, and then you get the colors. So good work here, and
Yeah.
the names were your idea, or how you came up with a new theme, let's say. So
Yeah.
is this like you're on vacation, say, okay, we should do this because I had the idea, or how it happens?
Well, it's strange because name picking usually takes a couple of days. Then our owner designs the logo, which takes a couple of days. Then we start with the team because it's the concept. The name gives the idea of how the team should look like, and the logo. For example, usually we like the Greek mythology, so we were using Greek god names. Uh, Lately, we were using city names. For example, Ecuador. PrimeFaces is really
Yes.
popular in Ecuador. Many government project agencies use PrimeFaces, so it was like a something that we would like to give them back to the users in Ecuador. So we named it Ecuador. We went to a conference in New York, so we named it Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Manhattan
is nice.
Yeah.
And harmony. What I meant is the harmony.
Yeah, the harmony is all about colors. It has like 60 themes, so it says that okay, you can choose 60 themes, and they all look and good, and they look and feel is in harmony. And I was in Barcelona, and it was in summertime. There were a lot of sea, beach, and the mountains. So that theme is very colorful. The material colors and very live colors. So so it depends on it depends on what are you doing at that time, and it has to look cool. For example, Ultima it means the last in Spanish. So it was supposed to be the last material theme, which has everything in it, but then we did another material theme called Serenity. So and let's say Morpheus was I think it was dream god in Greek mythology. So it's the colors are really smooth and gray. What else we have?
Just for the listeners, so I just you have Manhattan, Ecuador, Harmony, California, really nice picture. Apollo, which was remastered. So then you have Serenity, Avalon, Paradise, Barcelona, Morpheus, Verona, Atlantis, Poseidon, Ultima, Omega, and Icarus. And this is not all, but the whole mix with the logo, picture, and the colors is really appealing. So this is what I really liked, I think. And I was just curious how you came up with the names, and I also appreciate that you say, okay, I was in Barcelona, and I saw the colors, and then I got the idea for the theme. Which which makes more honest approach.
Yeah, I mean, you need inspiration, right? When
yes.
And the thing I like most about the themes is that as a Java developers, what I see is that with the Java you have to do the front end when you are using JSF, and you have to go to the back end to do all the stuff. But I mean, the Java projects that I have been to, the UI never look good. So the main problem is that either they don't have the designer, or they don't want to pay to an agency. A lot of, they don't have the budget for an agency to come up with their own. And the main problem is that even when they work with an agency, the agency came up with their own stuff, but no one can properly write the PrimeFaces theme, because PrimeFace has its own CSS and a lot of things. But with the themes, now we provide an easy SaaS-based, where you can just change variables and you can come up with your own theme. You get all the menus, the dashboards, and you can just. I heard that people are using the demos to show their clients. Okay, what type of application do you like? You like something more colorful? Okay, we have this Barcelona. We can buy this one for you and use this one. Because they have dummy data, dummy images, and things like that. People are using those showcases as prototyping approach for their clients, and client chooses, okay, Morpheus looks good, and the company purchases Morpheus from us and develops the project to their client. So the live demos are really helpful for quick prototyping as well.
This is actually what I'm doing. So if my clients would like to have JSF, I go always to the component showcase from PrimeFaces and tell them, look, whatever is here, I cannot change it. This is, we have to buy it. Otherwise, I will have to fork the source code, and then you are screwed, because we have effectively a fork of PrimeFaces. If they release new version, I cannot just keep it up, so just forget it. So just pick the components, whatever you like. They are not changeable. Pick the themes, and there is something to enhance. I will actually hire the PrimeFaces guys in order to extend it. And actually it happened several times. A bank in Munich, we worked together. I don't know whether you are aware. So you added additional classes, exposes classes to a table, and another company in Munich. So there was a lots collaboration, which was very good. And I think even a lot cheaper than, hiring a company which does not nothing about the PrimeFaces to try to do something with it. So for you, it's probably, exposing a class or an ID is nothing. And for the others, until they fork and whatever, it takes, a few days.
Yeah, exactly. My opinion.
Yeah. One question's about standards. So what I see in my projects is I get lots of contracts and requests the last 2 years moving away from JavaScript frameworks because my clients are sick of migrating from Angular 1 to 4, 5, 6 and whatever. And what's actually really appealing are web components. So I did already several projects with web components, and I really liked how it worked. It was my Javaistic, I would say, approach. No dependencies, just what browser provides. Now we have Polymer 3, like a syntactic sugar around. And what I also found, PrimeFaces elements, prime elements.
Yeah.
The question to you, any plans, to push towards web components? Because right now you have PrimeFaces for Angular and PrimeFaces for React.
Yeah.
But actually you only need PrimeFaces elements, right?
Yeah. So when we started Angular, the web components stack was not really solid. So it was in a draft stage. It had some problems with the browsers. And then with React, I remember that when we were doing the React, the web component support was not really good, or I'm not sure how it is now actually. I looked in the Polymer. So the projects you've done, they were using Polymer 3 or?
In this project, what I did, we just used even nothing. So we just used, the custom elements from the spec and nothing else.
Okay.
And I said to my clients, if this is not enough, just take a look at Polymer 3, which comes with ES6 imports and is really appealing. But we actually did just use web standards. And now I think we are on the verge where we can just fully rely just on standard CSS. For instance, you mentioned Sass, but there are CSS properties.
Yeah.
So we can just, use the CSS properties instead of Sass.
Yeah.
And you use custom elements. And then there are even Angular elements. So they also try to ship elements. And React is also mostly web component or custom element compatible.
Yeah.
So, and I get lots of requests from my clients. Okay, what happens if, for instance, we need a complex table or grid or calendar? So then I think I could say take a look on Prime Elements, for instance, because this is a web component. We can just use it and period,
Yeah.
Right now, we have to commit to React or Angular, which usually my clients or my current project don't even have it. So I have some startups using React, and we move away from Angular because
migration issues.
all my projects, this is like, I don't know whether you saw Angular. This is like application server in a browser, I would say.
Yeah, it's too complex. Very complex.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is like there's nothing to do with web development anymore. This is more like reactive programming with RxJS and dependency injection modules. So the last 20 years of Java development is in the browser right now, from OSGI to dependency injection to everything, like going completely wild.
Yeah, Angular is crazy. I mean, I'm just trying to come up with writing UI components, right? For Angular, it's really complex because there's a lot of features, and I just have a hard time keeping up with all this because sometimes I write a component and they say it doesn't work when you use it in a reactive form, or it doesn't work when the change action is set to push, or it doesn't work when you have a custom blah blah. I mean, it's just it had too many things going on, so it's hard to catch up. But I mean, we managed somehow. With the React, it's easier, but they also keep breaking things. Our whole suite broke in latest version 16.4. So since this week, I'm just updating all the components. And whenever after I had to do my 5th data table because I did one for PrimeFaces, 2 for Angular, 1 for React, 1 for jQuery UI. I had done 5 data tables, and I'm just saying, okay, I should have done maybe in the future. I'm not going to write any more data table. I will just write it once again. It will be a web component, and then I'm done.
Exactly. And now I think it's time to go. What you will effectively have to do, you write just class P data table, extends HTML element, and then you could expose the attributes via ES6 attributes and or properties, and you are basically set. You have the access to the DOM element, and people can integrate that with Angular or React. And my project, Kite Directed, is used without any framework, but I think this this is an important thing to do because you only have to implement it once.
Yeah, lately I'm checking Stencil.js because as far as I know for Polymer, the future of Polymer is, I read some GitHub discussions. I think they are going to, they said Polymer has reached feature complete status and they had to, they will do some changes, rename things. I'm not sure, but there are some things going on in Polymer. There won't be maybe Polymer 4, but they will rename it. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But there's also this new era of things called component generators. So as far as I know, when you work with Polymer, you need Polymer in your application.
Yes, but with Polymer, if you, for instance, let's say we have a data table, then with Polymer, you say class data table extends Polymer element.
Okay.
This is the name.
Yeah.
And what they do, they call, behind the scenes, the render method and stuff like that. And if you don't have Polymer, you extend from HTML elements.
Okay.
So I would say the dependency on Polymer is really low.
Okay.
And the goal of Polymer is to disappear. So they don't like, to take over the world. They try to, to provide syntactic sugar right now. And the really cool story in Polymer is one part called lit HTML. This is like,
that's what I was talking about. Lit HTML.
But this is 500 lines of code, and if they move away from it, you can take it over. There's already alternative is Hyper HTML is very similar to this. So I'm just ideas, and I just wondered, what's your road to the standards? Because for me, on my clients, is extremely important. I would say this is more and more important because no enterprise project would like to migrate from day to day to different frameworks. And the web component seems really appealing.
Yeah, I mean, since a couple of months, I've done some talks about web components here and in local groups. I've mentioned I'm really interested in Stencil.js. It's a project from Ionic because Ionic also had the same problem like we did because they were only providing a solution for Angular. They had to rewrite things when the Angular changes. So they did this Stencil.js library. So it just generates web components. It does not. It just goes away at runtime. You don't need it. So it just generates standard compliant code with web components. So I really like the syntax and how they came up with it. So I'm really, really interested in Stencil. I've also done a couple of components with it as a proof of concept. So as a matter of fact, our next project will be Prime Elements, actually. But we will start in a couple of months after we need to do some improvements in Angular and React version and the faces. Then in 2019, we will focus on Prime Elements, which will be the web component suite for... I think it's natural path. I mean, it's just... for a company that only does UI components, I think we should do web components.
Absolutely. But what I will give you an advice if possible, I would just start, with just Visual Studio Code and hack a component from scratch. You will see how easy it is.
Yeah.
And then try Stencil, because Stencil generates lots of code, and you are, at the end of the day, dependent on Stencil.
Yeah.
But if you create your components from scratch, there is no external dependency.
Yeah, but I had some problem with the native web components.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed harder to write a little bit, life cycles and also how do you generate the DOM? Because with Stencil and Polymer, you have the template. I'm not sure. Of course, I will check, but for complex components like data table, I would like to take advantage of Polymer's Stencil, whatever. But sure. I will just try with the native. Actually, I just need custom elements. I don't need to care. I don't care about HTML imports, shadow DOM, and things like that. I just need.
Yeah, HTML imports are dead actually.
Yeah.
And Shadow DOM, I think, but Shadow DOM is useful, right? Because you could encapsulate, the CSS styles inside a component.
Yeah, but Shadow DOM actually kills our business somehow because our whole theming depends on global styling. But if you
what you usually would do, you would use CSS properties for theming.
We have to remove the Sass, and for web components we cannot reuse our themes. Maybe convert the Sass-based ones to property-based ones, then it will just work.
Yeah,
but
I think there should be a straight conversion.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I know. I really like the idea of providing components in the browser without any JS framework. So that's really my
I think
dream.
that's the future.
That's why I was interested in JSF, because in 15 years ago I really liked component development, but the browsers were really primitive in 15 years ago. And now they are so advanced, we can just write components on the browser without any library. And the nice thing about the web components, whenever something shiny comes out like blah blah JS, it will probably support web components. So the new that prime elements can be used standalone without any library, JS, JavaScript, or with that new shiny JS framework.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have something, if you like, just ping me and I will hack something on stage or on YouTube as a proof of concept. You know how to use PrimeFaces without any JavaScript framework, not PrimeFaces rather than Prime Elements.
Yeah.
Without JavaScript frameworks. Is really what I would like to do.
That will be great once we have something.
Yes. And what I also noticed, that the PrimeNG is extremely popular, not only among Java developers rather than web developers, which is extremely funny. Because if you think about this, right, everyone said, okay, JSF is boring and let's do the web stuff. Now you just extract it, you just use the same components we always had.
Yeah.
You put it to the web without the Java backend, without actually data binding. The only thing which is lost is the data binding in the lifecycle. And now the whole JavaScript community is excited about your components. I heard it already several times on different conferences, like PrimeNG is really great. This is a very major component library, which is extremely funny, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard the news that Angular 2 will be a rewrite, so I said, okay, this is like 2007, like when the JSF 2 was going to be backward incompatible. So the history is repeating itself. So I had another 1 year window to come up with Prime, because I missed the chance to come up with something for Angular 1, Angular JS. So I, for day and night started working on PrimeNG. I had some mistakes again, used some jQuery stuff. I was wrapping things, but then I realized I should use Angular APIs to come up with the components. And when the Angular 2 came out, PrimeNG was one of the few component libraries. And right now, as the all other Prime libraries, it's mostly for enterprise stuff. All the data tables, complex, tree components, drags, drops, and we have 80 components. The most other libraries, they are quite for small projects. Like they have simple tables, autocompletes, and things like that. But PrimeNG is the most complete. Once you add it to your project, you don't need anything else, and it has themes and things like that. And it was really easier for us to port the components because there was no really a backend to deal with. We can just port them easily. And so I'm just glad that our hard work paid off in Angular world. It's like a couple of millions of downloads per year, so it's quite popular. It is really hard to implement because Angular is a really complex library to work with. But I mean, I'm really happy with how the community picked up, despite Google having their own component library, Angular Materials.
Yeah. No, but still, as a Java developer, I heard, hey, JSF is boring. We do Angular right now, and now at the end they get Angular with JSF components. Right?
yeah. I mean,
this is funny.
Yeah, I mean, they share a lot of things like the style classes, the idea, the DOM structures is almost same. So they are actually using the JSF components, but they don't know.
Okay, cool. Questions regarding support. So if someone would like to buy support, will it get support for everything, for PrimeNG, for PrimeFaces, how it works?
We have differentiated them. So we have PrimeFaces Pro, PrimeNG Pro. For example, if you have any troubles in your application that the certain component is not working, or you need some sort of feature, a new style class, a new feature, usually enterprises subscribe to our support service and they just demand new features, changes to the code, and things like that. That's why I like about, so we have somehow managed to combine the power of open source with the power of enterprise. So actually enterprises sponsor these features, and we put them in the open source repository so that community users also benefit from that. So,
but this is also very suitable approach, because what it happens is, in the next release they will find a feature which is going to be supported by everyone.
yeah,
If the enterprises would just get features for themselves, the problem is, if you release a new version, they will probably release without the feature. But your approach is actually really good for the enterprises.
yeah. I mean, we never. I just had to reject a couple of requests because we cannot do anything exclusive. Everything we do must be included in the core. And actually, there were some real rare cases. Most of the requests can also be useful to community users as well. And there's also other thing. The community users sometimes find bugs and report them, send PRs, pull requests. And then enterprise companies benefit from the community as well. So it's like a ecosystem where everyone is everyone benefits from each other.
Yeah, but if someone would ask you or hire you to have a project-specific extension, this would also work, right?
Yeah. I mean, if we sometimes do custom components, but it's not in PrimeFaces. It's their own library.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And the question about Prime: why the name Prime?
Actually, my brother came up with the idea. So the Prime is, the prime number. They're the cool numbers. They cannot be, they're special. So, and the prime means like prime time. So it's like, the top quality. And usually I see the word prime in a couple of places where to promote something cool or, like premium. Yeah. So the word prime has this idea of something cool and premium. So the
prime time, right?
Yeah, prime time. And we always use, the new version is out. It's prime time, so it just goes well with it.
And on your Twitter account, there is a picture with it says "Always bet on Prime."
Yeah.
Is it actually from your company building?
Yeah. We also have it. That one is Photoshop, but we also had similar one in our office as well. It's saying that always bet on Prime because. For JSF, Angular, and React or other libraries, there are other choices, right? So people usually evaluate other libraries and they have to pick one. Usually people don't like picking more than one to keep their dependencies low. So they always have to bet on one library, and that should be Prime.
Okay, you're absolutely right. So where people can find you, how to contact you, any references?
So our website is primetech.com.tr, but it's the company is not really known. The PrimeFaces.org is mostly known, the umbrella project of NG, React, and Faces. So they can always contact us from contact@primetech.com.tr. We also have this email at primefaces.org as well. I'm on Twitter and using Çağatay Çivici. It's usually easier to contact me from Twitter, actually.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. And some of my clients would really like to have, the custom elements earlier. They could sponsor this, right?
Yeah. The one thing about sponsorship is for core things like that, I usually not prefer any sponsorship because it gives you a pressure. So what I find from my experience over the years is that I cannot perform under pressure. So, for example, when I do an exam in college, I usually had some bad results. But when I'm doing any projects for school, I didn't get any nice, results. But when I get my, coffee, small in a room with some light, with no pressure at all, I usually provide some better code. So for some core stuff, for the beginning, actually maybe no pressure will be nice. But then, it will be nice to have some backing for the components. But it's actually coming soon. I mean, PrimeNG 6.0 is out, so it's close to feature complete. I mean, I really don't have a lot of ideas to do left for PrimeNG except maintaining it. And PrimeFaces is quite mature as well. And my colleague Mert Sincan is the lead of PrimeFaces. He's handling all the stuff. Prime React is coming up nicely. Then I think in a couple of months, by late summer, we will start Prime Elements as well. So I'm really excited about it. So by the end of year, we will come up with the first release with at least with the core components like tabs, trees, tables, and so on by the end of the year, hopefully.
Okay, this is really exciting. So I will watch you closely because this interests me. So thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
And yeah, here in future.
Yeah, thank you. I'm always a fan of your podcast. Whenever I had time from my phone, I listen to your podcast for the ones mostly related to the web ones. So I hope to see you soon in a conference.
Yeah, sure. Oracle Code probably.
Yeah, we'll see.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Ciao.